Hey everyone, welcome to the Marketing Companion, and we are going to have quite the intellectual romp today with my friend Paul Roetzer. Before we get started, because I know I'm going to get immersed in this and forget to remind you that this show is brought to you by Brevo. This is a pretty tumultuous, confusing world we're in. And if you want to expand your customer base and boost your revenue, you've got to check out their comprehensive CRM suite, tailor-made for businesses like yours. And they're good for small businesses, large businesses. Hundreds of our listeners are using this, I know. And you can, with Brevo, you can answer all your customer conversations in real time and create stunning marketing campaigns to nurture your customer relationships. Be sure to go to brevo.com/marketing companion, and you could try this for free. And if you'd like to sign up, be sure to use the promo code companion to get 50% off your business plan. So, Paul, now, of course, Paul is one of our regular co-hosts, but I want to remind you that he is also one of the co-hosts of the Artificial Intelligence show, and this has become one of my go-to podcasts. I never miss it. It is just so rich, evaluating what's going on in the world today. He and Mike Kaput just do a wonderful job. Paul also is the founder of the Marketing AI Institute, and there's wonderful resources and classes there. So be sure to check that out. I'll put the links in the show notes. So, Paul, this is something I was thinking about as I was preparing for our talk today. Are you at the point yet where you're getting tired about talking about artificial intelligence?
No, I mean, I think it's so new every day. Like it
Yeah,
does
yeah,
just feel like we're constantly have something to talk about. And I talk to so many different audiences, from educators to CEOs to CMOs to the practitioners. Like everybody's perspective is so interesting. And I love hearing people's stories about where they're at in their journey. And like it just doesn't get old yet. Like I'm grateful for that. Like
yeah.
I'm enjoying it still. It's
Well, that's
overwhelming at
great.
times, but I'm still enjoying
Yeah,
it.
that's great. I feel the same way about marketing and marketing
Yeah.
information. I've been blogging for almost 16 years, and my podcast is in the 13th year, and I'm still having fun. It's endlessly fascinating, and so I'm glad you have that same enthusiasm, and it comes through on your show.
Well, I
So
think, Mark, I mean, you know more than anybody. Like, it's a blessing to have people care what you have to say. And
yeah,
like, I don't know how you get tired of that. Like, and
yeah,
if you take it for granted, you lose it. But like, for me, every day, I'm just grateful that we have something of value to add to the conversation, and people want to hear it. Like that,
yeah,
not many people get to do a career doing that. So no,
yeah,
I'm appreciative of it.
yeah, yeah. You bring up a good point of just you know thinking about what an honor it is to have an audience, and I'll never forget the the thrill I got when I had my first comment on a blog post.
Yeah.
It's like I can't believe someone is reading this and responding to this. And honestly, Paul, I've never lost that appreciation.
Yeah.
I really haven't. So look, there's so many things we can get into today, but there's one thing that, whenever I do my marketing coaching or when I'm doing personal branding coaching, I always listen to like when there's a change in the tone of someone's voice,
Yeah.
right? You can start to hear the passion come out, and that's when you think, "Wow, wait, there's something there. Let's dig into this." And you're a pretty even-keeled guy most of the time, and you hit on a subject that certainly is something um, that's so relevant and meaningful, and that's this idea about trying to think about how we can use AI to protect our children from social media dangers, and not just
Hmm.
social media dangers, but some of these things that are going on with AI. You talked on your show, and we've had a big conversation in our Rise community about this young man who killed himself because
Hmm.
he had this emotional relationship with an AI. I could hear in your voice how that really hit you. And as a parent myself, And I'll say this is the I guess I can say this to my listeners. I'm going to be a grandfather.
Nice.
Oh my gosh.
Congrats. That's awesome.
Oh, I'm so excited. I'm so excited. Uh yeah, so tell us a little bit about your thoughts on on this emotional bond that's occurring. I saw an article in the New York Times this week, Paul, that said, AI is built for lonely people.
Yeah.
And so talk a little bit about that and this new GPT you built just out of your own heart and passion.
Yeah. So, I mean, just for context, like I started researching AI in 2011, right before my daughter was born. So our first kid was born in January 2012. And any parent knows, like your life just sort of changes, obviously, when you have kids in a lot of ways. And that was as I started to explore AI. And like within the first couple years, I started realizing like it had this potential to create time. And so part of the reason I've pursued AI all these years was I wanted to find a way to free me up to be more present with my family, to spend more time with my kids, to not be gone, as they were growing up. And then as the years went by, I started realizing like I have no idea what the future holds. Like I don't know what jobs look like. I don't know any of this. And so my passion for AI continued on because I was trying to actually figure out what the future for my kids looked like. Along the way, maybe 2016, 17, I started realizing the dark side of AI. Like that this powerful intelligence was going to create all kinds of complexities in society. And there's a specific moment at a conference in Austin, Texas when I realized that the psychologists and the people who should be solving for these complexities weren't even really at the starting gate yet. And so I started like really worrying about or thinking more intensely about these negative sides of AI. And now my kids are starting to grow and it becomes very present for me. So it's always been a part of my exploration in AI is that the challenges of it, the impacts on society, things like that. So when I read the New York Times article, my kids are now 11 and 12. Um, there was just that moment where you're like, oh, it's happening. Like the things
Yeah,
that I always thought about are now becoming part of society where people are getting attached emotionally to chatbots and you just realize like as a parent, it's so hard. Like it's so
yeah,
hard to even know these things exist. Like if you're not in it every day, like how do you even know an AI exists that you can get a relationship with, or that
yeah, yeah,
Snap probably has AIs that people are building relationships with, and then I started stepping back and thinking, like, I don't even know how to manage my kids' safety on Roblox. Like, whether, like, like, my kids aren't allowed on TikTok. And yet, like, through YouTube, you can watch TikTok videos, like
yeah,
things like that, where if I'm not paying attention, I wouldn't even know these things.
yeah.
And that's where I just started snowballing with, like, there's so many ways that it can go wrong. And parents have so little insight into these things and certainly don't generally know how to talk to their kids about them, how to set guidelines and responsible usage. And so, yeah, that was what led to me building the Kid Safe GPT. Is like I just want a starting point for parents.
Yeah, so I'll post a link to this, Paul. And basically, I haven't tried it yet
Yeah.
myself. My kids are grown, but so as I understand it, it helps sort of coach parents through difficult questions that they may have with their kids. Is that right?
Yeah, there's three conversation starters. So one is understand risks. Two is talk to my kids, and then the third is set guidelines. And
Yeah.
so the understand risks is like, what are the dangers of Roblox for my kids? It can be as simple as that, or like,
Mm.
what is these AI avatars I hear about, and it'll teach you about these risks related to things. So you can ask specific games. It's for online gaming, social media, AI. It's like anything. Their online environment, basically, their digital
Yeah.
presence. And
Yeah.
so and then it's like, hey, my kid's spending too much time on YouTube. How do I talk to him about that? And it'll give you ways to start those conversations. Or I know my kids are spending a bunch of time on you or on Roblox. I know you can talk to like other people on there. I want to set
Mhm.
some guidelines for Roblox. It'll write you a draft of guidelines. So and it's built on ChatGPT. I didn't like do all the training data and all these things. I just built a custom GPT in like a half hour on top of ChatGPT as a
Mhm.
starting point for people. And that's what it's meant to be, is like a start. It's not meant to replace the need for actual like physicians or psychologists. Like if you have a child who's struggling mentally, like, this is not a replacement for that. This is a help you understand what's going on and help you start to take some actions.
Yeah. Well, it's something that I've been thinking a lot about because I know, I mean, a lot of people are saying, well, what's the parental role here? And although my children are grown for the last I guess it's I don't know 16 years, I've mentored young children
Yeah.
in economically deprived areas, and they are online all the time, all the time. And I mean, I know there's like sneaky ways to get around things, even if you think you know what's going on. And at that, especially in the teen years, the most important thing is to be accepted and to belong and to have that friend. And so it's sort of haunting this idea that AI was built for the lonely because there's a lot of lonely people out there.
Yeah.
And I noticed I saw this week that there's pending legislation in Australia to make the age limit for social media 16.
Yep.
So that might
I
be.
would be an advocate of
I would too. I would too.
that.
So one of the things I've been looking at as a college educator myself is the role of AI in marketing education. I think marketing education in general needs an overhaul, but that's probably a topic for another day. And I teach both graduate classes and I've also done some undergrad. And the graduate classes, believe it or not, I mean, they are more in tune with what's going on in AI, I think, even than some of the younger people.
Okay.
But have you had time to think about how marketing education needs to evolve in terms of incorporating AI, using AI in the curriculums?
I mean, the best examples I've heard is making it experiential, like steering into the use of it, teaching responsible use of it, teaching the limitations, the capabilities. And it's really hard to do that without just experimenting. Like I haven't heard an instance of this, but what comes to mind immediately is like having a little hackathon. Like, okay, we're teaching you how to build a marketing plan. Actually, this might be a practical example. My daughter's in seventh grade. She is doing an entrepreneurship class in her tech and design class, and they have to build a business. And yesterday, I spent 3 hours with her and her classmates developing a marketing plan, teaching them
Oh,
how to
that's
do a
cool.
marketing plan. But what I did instead was I built a startup buddy GPT, and it
Mm,
actually functions as an advisor, and it's trained at the seventh grade level to ask them questions, challenge them, teach them concepts. And so as we're thinking about like total addressable market, I go in there and say, okay, help us build a formula to calculate total addressable market. And then I talk to them about what it did and I walk through it. And so I think like teaching the students to use the tools, but also as a professor, like integrating the tools into how you teach to accelerate the understanding of concepts could be so wonderful. And that's where I think the real magic can happen is accepting that these tools will be used and helping them figure out how to use them in a responsible way where they're not seen as a crutch to the learning, they're actually an accelerant to the learning.
yeah, I agree, and that's what I've been doing in my classes. And I don't think I think we would be in trouble if we start to have like classes devoted to AI in the marketing curriculum. It seems like every class should have just AI just built in, just like it's going to be
Yeah.
built into our world. And the frustration I have is that most of the people that are in my classes, they're just basically using, I mean, literally just ChatGPT,
Yeah.
really nothing else. I mean, they don't even know something like Perplexity or Claude exists,
Yeah.
but they're using it as a glorified search engine, and
Right.
so I'm like pushing them to just what I tell students is you need to be using this every single day. You need to be experimenting every single day. When you get out of school and you have your first marketing job, you're going to be expected to answer two questions. What do we do about TikTok and what do we do about AI? And you better be prepared for both.
Yep. Yeah, it's true. It's a changing environment, and I agree. Like ChatGPT is the thing they all seem to know and use, but I've definitely seen over reliance on it. Where once you realize it can write the thing, it's like just let it write the thing, not have it write the first paragraph and teach me how it did it, and then me write the second paragraph. That's what I'm saying. Like responsible use is as a collaborator, as an always on like mentor or advisor. Like that's how it could be used if it's taught properly.
Hmm. Hmm. Well, that sort of rolls into the next idea I wanted to talk about. We're covering a lot of ground here today.
Yeah.
And it's about art and creativity. Did you
Mm.
see that the article about the robot who and the painting that sold for $1.1 million dollars?
No, I didn't see
Oh,
that.
you didn't see that?
No.
Wow, I feel very proud of myself that I've introduced a topic that you were not aware of. So there was an article this week about a humanoid robot.
Okay.
I mean, it looks like a human, has hair and a face and the whole thing, but has these kind of weird robot arms and fingers.
Hmm.
And this thing is trained on AI to paint and
Okay.
to do oil paintings. And so the trainers said, "Okay, we would like you to do a painting. Let's brainstorm some ideas." And so the robot said, doing a painting of Alan Turing might be nice because there's kind of a an
Almost like
anniversary.
a Turing test kind of like
Yeah, there's
embedded
like an
within it. Yeah.
anniversary of Alan Turing coming up or
Okay.
something. They said, maybe that would be good. And so, uh, just like a sort of like a true artist, the robot did like six uh, kind of quick sketches of what this painting might be, and then incorporated these six sketches into a full-sized oil painting and it's sort of it's beautiful and sublime, but it's also a little spooky because it's
Yeah.
dark. I mean, it's dark. It's like a lot of gray and brown tones, and you only see like half of his face. So this painting sold for $1.1 million dollars. So it's something that I've been thinking a lot about in terms of the place of humans in the AI world. That's a big, part of the topic of a new book I have coming out.
Yeah.
And and this one part of my view has been, if it's commodity like creativity, like a press release or even a news story, which is sort of formulaic. Um, if it's something that requires competency, competency is going to be a commodity, and that will be replaced. But something where the human connection still matters, that and that is going to be still owned by humans, I would think. And but then I saw this article and I saw this amazing painting, and it sold for $1.1 million dollars. And at first I thought, well, maybe it's because of the novelty of the thing. But even then, there's still something emotional saying, this is special. I want to own this because of this. Any without having the benefit of having read the article,
Yeah.
any observations on your part?
So I've thought deeply about this. So my wife is a painting major. My
Oh,
daughter
wow.
wants to be an artist. My
Yeah.
the painting behind my head is actually one of my wife's college paintings.
Oh, it's cool.
So here's where I've kind of landed on this so far is um, machines are never going to be creative in the way humans are creative, but that doesn't mean they aren't able to create things, that they aren't able to develop paintings that sell for $1 million. What differentiates a human creation from a machine creation is a human has actual emotions and life experiences and has gone through pain and joy and interacted with the world, has senses, around the world. And so when my wife, like if you took this painting behind me and you showed me A and B, and I didn't know which was the humans and which was the machine, there's a chance I would pick the machine one. But then if you said, okay, the machine one was done in a couple minutes and it, they'd embodied this language model in it, and so it like was able to come up with the concept and it created it, I'd be like, yeah, that story doesn't really like resonate with me. But like, tell me the story of the human one. Okay, that was actually a girl her sophomore year in college who was going through X, Y, and Z, and this is, she spent 8 weeks doing the painting, and it's actually three iterations of it, and here's what happened as an output of it. And it's like, I'll take that one. Like, so I think what's going to happen is we will have AI created artwork. We will have human created artwork. There will be a market for AI created artwork because it's AI created artwork. But I actually think it will deepen our appreciation of human creativity and our connection to the artwork because we will start to appreciate it in a different light, that there are humans capable of doing these incredible things. And so that's kind of how I think about it. It's how I talk to my wife. It's how I talk to my
Mhm.
daughter. Like, who, when I first realized that I was going to be able to do these things, 5, 6 years ago when I saw it coming, it's like there's that moment of existential crisis of like, but that's what I do.
Yeah.
That's what makes me
Yeah.
unique. And I actually I have this hope that we'll actually have a renaissance in human creativity as a result of AI.
Mm.
And so I don't know. I think it's one of those things I just choose to be optimistic about the future of human creativity because otherwise I'd be really depressed. And
Oh,
I wouldn't know what to tell my wife.
yeah, or your daughter.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and my whole family's very artistic as well. I mean, they're creators and musicians, and
Yeah.
um, yeah. And the one thing I always sort of held on to is at the highest level, what is art? Excuse me. And I've always thought about it as it's art sort of interprets the human experience, whatever
Okay.
the experience, right? Art
Yeah.
interprets the human experience. And so you kind of hold on to that to say, well, we each have our own human experience, and maybe there'll be a day where AI will have its own experience or something.
Right.
But and then the other thing that got me thinking about this, Paul, is if you it's exactly building on what you're talking about is if you had a human painting and the AI painting, and then maybe you like the AI painting, but you like the story of the human painting, and that's what draws you in. And it made me think about us as creators,
Yeah.
that our blogging, our videos, our podcasts need to move toward art. So think about what's the Google thing that's making the podcast.
Notebook LM.
Notebook, yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, you listen to it and it's kind of novel and a little annoying, how they do the audio, but it's not art. It's not
Mhm.
the human experience. It's not human stories. It's not empathy. It's not like you and me talking about our kids and our hopes and our dreams. And it made me think about, um, almost as a strategic idea, that to survive, uh, again, competence is not enough. You got Notebook LM that can be sort of competent. That we need to move our creativity more toward pure art and expressing the human experience.
Yeah, I think I've said many times, like, yeah, like for brands, you have to think about what's the more human side of it all. So like I'm extremely bullish on in-person events, and not because I own an event business, but
Yeah.
because you can't replace that with machines. Like it's us being together and like having a drink and like sitting there and talking about what we just heard in a session and like getting to meet the speakers and things like that. That's not replaceable. And so I always guide brands to like think about the things that are really hard to replace, like conversations like this. Yeah, we can simulate something with Notebook LM, but yeah, after the third time, it's like, okay, I get it. Like it kind of sounds the same. And but where you and I talking, and it's like the point of view, or if like people listen to my podcast, know that like I actually read everything we talk about. I watch all the videos. I listen to the podcast. I stay up late on Sunday nights preparing. Like that means something. Like the fact that they're going to invest an hour of their time, there's like this value exchange of like this guy's putting in the work and like that matters. And
Yeah,
I
yeah,
I,
yeah.
I don't think that goes away. Like I think people appreciate it more actually.
I agree. I agree. And it also ties closely, I think, to the trust in the personal brand,
Yeah.
because you do put in that work, and they know they're going to get the real story from you. They're going to get the purest evaluation that you're going to be able to give them because of the research that you did. And I mean, in all this world of misinformation and deep fakes, we're going to keep turning to people like that. Well, I mean the whole idea of creators and AI, it's going to be what such a rich topic in the months. I almost said years to come, but it's the months to come.
Well, Zuckerberg was just like 2 weeks ago talking about how he's like looking forward to Facebook being filled with AI generated content. I was like, oh my God, like that is not the world I want. Like
Yeah.
maybe
Oh,
that's what people want, but like he's already planning on social media being flooded with AI content and like amplifying it. That's
yeah.
the world they're envisioning.
Yeah. It'll slop book.
Yeah, no, no thanks. Like it's not the world I want to live in.
Yeah. Hey, well, believe it or not, we're nearing the end of our time already, which is just so unfortunate. But I wanted just to ask sort of a fun question. And again, I admire you so much, Paul, and appreciate the work you do with the deep investigations. And I was just curious, over the last couple of months, if you saw something going on out there where you thought, wow, that's really cool. We're almost getting desensitized today
Yeah.
because we've got the music and we've got the videos and ChatGPT is blowing us away every 3 months with something new. Is there something that you've seen that said, okay, that is really cool?
Yeah, I mean, Notebook LM was that for me. I
Yeah.
think
Oh, cool.
in part because it can seem like a parlor trick what they're doing, but the
Let's
complexity.
back up for a minute and just let's talk about what that is. There might be some
Yeah.
people that don't know what that is.
Okay, so Notebook LM was released as a Google Labs experiment in July of 2023. And what it enabled you to do was upload PDFs largely and then have a conversation with those PDFs. So imagine like a chat GPT, but with a knowledge base that you've uploaded to it, and then you can just talk to that data. It can create briefs, table of contents, things like that. It didn't take off. Then a few months back, they put their more powerful language model underneath it. And all of a sudden, those briefs and study guides and things started being really good. And, the citations of where it found the information. So you can imagine, you can put up to 50 documents in there. So imagine like if you're a professor and you've got all your coursework and just dump it all in there and share a notebook on with people, they can talk to it. We built one, Mike Kaput built one every transcript to our podcast. So we can now interact with our podcast in real time through chat. Like, when did I talk about this thing? And it goes and finds it and pulls it right in, that kind of stuff. But then the real breakthrough, what created this viral effect, is they used AI to auto generate what they call audio overviews. So imagine, like, the first use case I did is I gave it a 48-page PDF from OpenAI called a safety card on their reasoning model, their O1 model. Very dense, very scientific. Uploaded that, hit generate audio overview, and in about a minute and a half, I had an 11-minute podcast with two very natural sounding, a man and a woman, natural sounding conversation explaining and talking about that PDF. If you didn't know it was AI, you would have no idea that it wasn't humans having this conversation. And so that sort of caught fire, and Notebook LM went everywhere. And it's genius because there's a team of like 5 people, and they let their product manager get out and become like a public face of this thing. And she was sharing all these cool things. Like it was very un-Google like how they did it. And it really worked. And so that was, but the moment I heard the audio overviews, I was like, there's something different here. Like this is not your standard voice model you're hearing in Siri or Alexa or even advanced voice mode from OpenAI. It is different technology, and that was the first wow moment. I was like, there's something else coming because there's no way this was possible before.
Yeah, yeah. Well, there's a mutual friend of ours who has actually created a Notebook LM podcast. I mean, he's
Nice.
publishing it as a lead judge
That's
is
is he
public.
really? That's
Yeah,
funny.
he is. He's
I assumed
publishing.
it was only a matter of time. I didn't know they had done
Yeah,
it
yeah, and
yet.
and some of the people in my community kind of listened to it just to be courteous, but they said, it's really interesting. It's really good because you got this LLM like talking to
Yep.
itself, and they know everything.
And now you can steer it. You can say, do it as a seventh grade level. I want you to focus on these docs. So they just rolled that out like 2 or 3 weeks ago where you can actually customize the audio. It's wild.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that is exciting. I've had couple of busy, I've had a very, very busy month, so I really haven't had time to play around with that myself. But once we get into the holidays, I'll be able to, spend a little time on
I
experimentation.
use it in our podcast workflow all the time. Like when it's a complex topic and I need to explain it, I'll
Wow.
go grab resources and videos and I'll drop them into a notebook LM and then I'll talk to it and be like, okay, I'm thinking about this positioning or explaining it in this way. How would you explain it?
Really, that's so cool.
Yeah.
And the other thing about it, your field is changing so fast. And what I'm finding is like as I'm working on posts, it's like, hey, wait a minute, I covered that 6 months ago. Where was that? Where did I mention that? So that could be a really, really interesting use case.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I'll put a link to that in the show notes as well. So, Paul, thanks so much for your time, and again, thanks for all the great work you're doing with the show and with the institute. And everyone, thanks so much. We appreciate you. Like I said, I truly never take you for granted. If you send me a note, I get the same thrill that I got 16 years ago when I saw the first comment on my blog post. So keep those cards and letters coming. Take care, everyone. We'll see you next time.